The reign of Charlemagne was without much doubt one of the most prosperous periods in Western Europe ever since the fall of the Roman Empire. Most people associate the name Charles the Great only with war and constant military campaigns, and while those were definitely present during his rule, they weren't his only accomplishment. For a guy who most probably couldn't even read, his reign was, interestingly enough, a time of great cultural and intellectual activity. Francia wasn't the only rising military power of its time. Just to its eastern border lay Bulgaria, a country founded upon a union of local Slavs and formerly nomadic Bulgars. The Bulgarian state had just undergone a rapid expansion under the reign of Krum the Dreadful, who defeated the Byzantines on multiple occasions and also subjugated a large chunk of the Avar Khaganate. Half a century later, in 864, the current monarch of Bulgaria, Boris, made the crucial decision to finally Christianize his pagan subjects. This would start a process of change for Bulgaria in which this pagan kingdom would transform itself into a Christian empire in less than a few decades. This process was largely successful, mostly thanks to the son of Boris, Simeon, now more widely known as Simeon the Great. Simeon was likely born in the capital of Bulgaria, Pliska, probably around 864 or 865. He was not the eldest son of Boris, and so he wasn't the first in the line of succession. Boris had instead intended for his son to become a high-ranking church official in the newly Christian Bulgaria, and so sent Simeon to study in Constantinople. There, according to Byzantine sources, the young man excelled in nearly all his studies. He was even often referred to as the half-Roman because of his fluency in Greek and passion for Greek culture. Meanwhile, in 889, Prince Boris made the decision to retire and was succeeded by his eldest son, Vladimir. Vladimir was not too fond of the newly adopted Christian religion, and literally minutes after sitting on the Bulgarian throne began undermining it and made attempts to make paganism the official religion once again. Boris, finally deciding that he had enough of Vladimir's disrespect for his father's hard work, dethroned him. He made sure to punish his son in accordance with the old Bulgar traditions, which Vladimir was so reluctantly trying to revive. He was blinded and then imprisoned. Simeon was then recalled from Constantinople and in 893 was crowned Prince or Knyaz of Bulgaria. His first deal of business as a ruler was to relocate the capital of Bulgaria, Preslav, from the old one Pliska, as the former was associated with Bulgaria's pagan past. The coronation of Simeon was met with great enthusiasm in Constantinople. The current Roman Emperor, Leo VI, thought that Simeon, as a friend and lover of the Greco-Roman civilization, would easily act in accordance with the Byzantine interests. Little did Leo know that Simeon was far more ambitious than he looked and even had plans to ascend himself on the throne in Constantinople. The long-lasting peace between Bulgaria and Rome that Boris had established was about to end in 895 when Leo VI moved the marketplace for Bulgarian goods from Constantinople to Thessaloniki. There, the Bulgarian merchants were heavily taxed. Simeon complained to the emperor, however, was ignored, and so what is regarded by many as the first trade war in Europe began. To ensure a victory, the Byzantines did what they do best and bribed the nomadic Magyars to raid Bulgaria. At first, the Magyar-Roman coalition was successful and scored a number of minor victories in northern Bulgaria. The following year, however, Simeon decided to beat the Romans at their own game and hired another nomadic people, the Pechenegs, to attack the Magyars. A combined Bulgaro-Pechenek force completely annihilated the Magyars at the Battle of the Southern Bach River. This battle is one of the main reasons that forced the Hungarian tribes to migrate to their current homeland in Pannonia. After dealing with the threat to the north, Simeon focused on the south, where he decisively defeated the Roman army at the Battle of Bulgaro-Figon. The Bulgarian forces reached as far as Constantinople and even besieged it. The war finally ended with a peace treaty under which Byzantium was obliged to pay an annual tribute and cede some land along the Black Sea to Bulgaria. The period between the signing of this treaty and the year 912 was a relatively peaceful one, although it is likely that Simeon did launch several plundering expeditions in Thrace and southern Macedonia, which possibly resulted in more territorial gains for Bulgaria. Simeon could now focus on the internal affairs of Bulgaria. He now turned his efforts towards large-scale building projects and sponsorship of noted scholars and writers. This period saw a mass production and translation of numerous secular and theological literary works, and the development of a new alphabet that would become the second most widely used one in the entire world. The energetic cultural and intellectual activity that occurred during Simeon's reign made Bulgaria the first and largest cultural center in all of Eastern Europe. However, with each past year, the peace between Bulgaria and Byzantium became less and less stable. Simeon's dream to ascend on the throne in Constantinople was not going to be stopped by a peace treaty. The pretext for war would appear in 812. In Constantinople, the long reign of Leo VI had just ended. The late emperor was succeeded by his underage son, Constantine VII, and his brother Alexander, who held most of the real political power. In the spring of 1913, Simeon's envoys, who had arrived in Constantinople to renew the peace of 896, were sent away by Alexander, who refused to pay the annual tribute. Simeon used this as an excuse to attack the empire. The conditions became even more favorable for the Bulgarian monarch after the death of Emperor Alexander in June, which left an underage boy on the Byzantine throne and in return caused political turmoil in the entire country. Simeon reached Constantinople mostly unopposed. The Byzantines knew that they were in no position to fight and so had to compromise. Nicholas Mysticus, the Patriarch of Constantinople and an influential figure in the Byzantine court, managed to negotiate with Simeon. Simeon's title was to be elevated to an imperial one. From this day onward, until the Balkan campaign of Emperor Basil II, Bulgaria was to be ruled by an emperor, or Tsar, in Bulgaria. Mysticus also negotiated a diplomatic marriage between Simeon's daughter and Constantine VII, which was to occur when both came of age. However, shortly after Simeon visited Constantinople, Constantine's previously exiled mother, Zoe, returned to Constantinople. Through a plot, she managed to assume power in February 1914, practically removing Patriarch Nicholas from the government, disowning and obscuring his recognition of Simeon's imperial title and rejecting the planned marriage of her son to Simeon's daughter. This would prompt Simeon to renew his campaigns against Byzantium. The following 3 years, Simeon would launch numerous plundering expeditions, mostly in Byzantine-controlled Thrace. In 1917, the Byzantines hatched a large-scale campaign against Bulgaria. A 30,000-strong Byzantine army led by the general Leo Phocas, and a navy which accompanied the land force, in charge of which was a man named Roman Locopenas, invaded Bulgaria. Once informed, Simeon rushed to intercept the Byzantine land army. The two forces would clash near the river of Acheloas. This clash would result in one of the bloodiest battles of early medieval Europe. At the end, the Byzantines were completely annihilated. Nearly all of their men were massacred by the fast-charging Bulgarian cavalry. Just before the Battle of Acheloas, the Byzantines managed to secure an alliance with the Serbs. The former launched a surprise invasion in the west of Bulgaria. Simeon, however, reacted quickly, sending an army which would invade and pacify the Serbian Principality. Between 920 and 922, Bulgaria increased its pressure on Byzantium, campaigning in the south through Thessaly and reaching as far as Corinth. Simeon's army reached Constantinople and laid a siege on the city in 921 and 922. By 924, Bulgaria was in control of most of the Balkan Peninsula and had subjugated all of the Serbian Principality after it attempted to renew its alliance with Byzantium. The same year, Simeon tried negotiating an alliance with the Fatimid Caliphate to lay a combined siege on the Roman capital. The Arab fleet, combined with the formidable Bulgarian land force, was definitely an existential threat to Byzantium, so the Romans were quick to react and persuade, or rather bribe, the Fatimids to end their relations with Bulgaria. The lack of any navy did not stop Simeon to lay one final, rather symbolic siege to Constantinople. Finally, during the summer of 924, Simeon conversed with the aforementioned Roman Locopenas, who had now risen to the rank of co-emperor. The two arranged a truce, although no official peace treaty was signed. Rome was once again obliged to cede territory and pay tribute to Bulgaria. In 926, Simeon made attempts to further expand Bulgaria to the west by attacking the Byzantine allied Croatia. Simeon's troops invaded Croatia but were completely defeated by the army of the Croatian king Tomislav in the Battle of the Bosnian Highlands. In the following 927, Simeon passed away in Preslav. He was succeeded by his son Peter, who finally signed an official peace treaty with Byzantium. He ceded some of the land his father had occupied and in turn was promised a hefty annual tribute and an official recognition of his imperial title. Tsar Simeon I has remained one of the most highly valued Bulgarian historical figures. His reign would be remembered as a golden age for Bulgaria and his name would serve as a reminder of Bulgaria's great past. Of course, every prosperous historical period has its overlooked downsides, and so does Simeon's rule. It is likely that for the average Bulgarian peasant, life did not get easier but even worse. The constant ambitious military campaigns drained Bulgaria's resources and the lower social castes were very possibly more heavily taxed than ever. I put a lot of effort into the making of these videos, and so I'll be very thankful if you could press the like button and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and this has been Bulgarian Empire Mapping. See you next time.